She just left. So I picked her up, she was crying, I kissed her, gave her a hug. I didn't know it was gonna be the last kiss. But I felt good telling her I love her.
Abandoned on the shoulder of one of America's busiest highways lay the body of a 16-year-old girl. She had been shot in the neck and left to die alone on the cold asphalt.
So I feel like something was really wrong that night when she came.
You had a feeling?
I begged her to stay. I said, just stay with me.
The victim's name was Tioni Theus, a straight-A student from Compton who loved dance and golf, according to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office.
A lot of money before that, we gonna pay for it. Oh my God! Shut up! Why not a goddamn window up? I'm about to.
Tioni may have been a victim of human trafficking. The California Highway Patrol admits they've exhausted all investigative leads. The reward for information has grown to over $110,000. Someone out there knows what happened to Tioni Theus, but they're staying silent. Stay tuned as we reveal everything about this case. What state are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Welcome to our channel. Please like this video, share and subscribe to this channel to help raise awareness and spread caution. Let's begin.
Out of another top story, the murder of Tioni Theus. Her father speaking out, remembering his 16-year-old daughter, whose body was found on the side of a freeway off-ramp in South L.A. It's been 2 weeks since Theus was killed, and the questions surrounding her death are mounting.
Fox 11's Christina Gonzalez is live in Inglewood. And Christina, what an interview with that father today.
You know, and her father is a very well-known, long-time shop owner here in Inglewood, which is, as far as we know, the last place where she was seen alive by a family member.
Tioni Theus was not the stereotypical victim you might expect. At Centennial High School in Compton, she was known as a dedicated student who consistently made the honor roll. Her teachers remember her passion for learning, her love of dance, and her unexpected talent for golf, a sport that brought her genuine joy and provided a positive outlet. But Tioni's life changed forever in 2019 when her mother became the victim of a hit-and-run accident. The crash left her mother with severe brain injuries that required extensive rehabilitation. While her mother fought to recover in a rehabilitation facility, Tioni moved in with her father. The teenager who had once been focused on her studies and extracurricular activities began showing signs of distress. Family members noticed she was staying out later, disappearing for extended periods, and displaying behavioral changes that concerned them. Her father, Kevin Theus, has been honest about this difficult period. In interviews, he acknowledged that Tioni began rebelling after her mother's accident. She started running away from home, sometimes disappearing for days at a time. The family knew she was struggling, but like many parents facing similar situations, they didn't fully understand the extent of the danger she was in. During this vulnerable period, Tioni became involved in activities that court documents would later reveal were connected to human trafficking. She was being exploited for prostitution and theft, crimes that she was compelled to commit as a victim, not as a willing participant. This distinction is crucial for understanding her story and the broader issue of trafficking. By the time Tioni was found dead on that January morning, she had been missing from her normal life for months. The honor roll student who once had dreams and ambitions had been transformed into a trafficking victim. Not through any fault of her own, but because adults with criminal intent recognized her pain and weaponized it against her. Kevin Theus watched his daughter leave their Compton home that evening, unaware that it would be the last time he would see her alive. Like many parents of troubled teenagers, he had learned to balance concern with hope, trying to maintain connection while respecting her growing independence. He had no reason to believe this night would be any different from the many others when she had returned home safely. The few facts available paint a troubling picture. Tioni was last definitively seen in Compton on the evening of January 7th. At some point during the night, she traveled approximately 15 miles to South Los Angeles, where she would ultimately be found on the shoulder of the 110 freeway near Slauson Avenue. Medical examiners determined that Tioni died from a single gunshot wound to the neck. The position of her body and the location where she was found suggest she was killed elsewhere and then transported to the freeway. The California Highway Patrol responded to the scene in the early morning hours of January 8th. What they found was a young woman who appeared to be a teenager, shot and abandoned. Initial identification took time, as Tioni was not carrying identification, and her family had not yet reported her missing, not unusual given her pattern of extended absences. When Tioni Theus received a call that his daughter's body had been found, his world collapsed. The teenager he had been trying so hard to help, the daughter he had never stopped loving despite her struggles, was gone forever. The party she had mentioned to him the night before had become the last conversation they would ever have. The timing of Tioni's murder raises disturbing questions. January 7th was a Friday night, typically a busy evening for the kind of illegal activities court documents suggest she was being forced to participate in. Was she killed because she tried to escape her traffickers? Did she refuse to comply with demands? Did she threaten to reveal information that could have endangered criminal operations? The investigation that began that morning would eventually involve multiple law enforcement agencies, generate a six-figure reward fund, and capture the attention of state officials, including Governor Gavin Newsom. But despite all these resources and attention, Tioni's killer remains free, and her family continues waiting for answers about what happened during those final, fatal hours of her young life. When California Highway Patrol officers first responded to Tioni Theus's murder scene, they couldn't have anticipated the complex investigation that would follow. What initially appeared to be a straightforward homicide case quickly revealed layers of criminal activity that would require expertise in human trafficking investigations. Court documents filed in connection with the case revealed that Tioni had been compelled to participate in prostitution and theft. The legal language is important here. She was compelled, meaning forced or coerced, not willingly participating. The trafficking connection explained many of the puzzling aspects of Tioni's final months. Her extended absences from home, her behavioral changes, and her presence in South Los Angeles all aligned with typical patterns seen in trafficking cases involving minors. Traffickers often move victims between different locations to prevent them from forming connections with potential sources of help. Investigation into trafficking cases presents unique challenges that differ significantly from traditional homicide investigations. Victims are often afraid to speak with law enforcement due to threats, trauma, or fear of being arrested themselves. The reward for information in Tioni's case grew steadily as various organizations and government entities contributed funds.
Well, someone knows who killed Tioni, but that person still has not come forward. The reward, more than $100,000, remains. As her funeral was this afternoon, a huge outpouring of grief from friends and the community and, of course, family members.
Governor Gavin Newsom's office authorized additional reward funds, demonstrating state-level commitment to solving the case. This high-level attention was significant, as it indicated recognition that Tioni's murder represented broader issues of violence against vulnerable young people and the need for justice in trafficking-related crimes. The investigation also revealed systemic issues in how society responds to missing and exploited minors. Tioni's case highlighted the gaps between different agencies and jurisdictions, the challenges of investigating crimes that cross geographic boundaries, and the need for specialized training in recognizing and responding to trafficking situations. Despite the extensive investigation, multiple agency involvement, and substantial reward money, key questions about Tioni's murder remain unanswered. Who killed her? Was it someone within the trafficking network that exploited her? Was her murder connected to other crimes or other victims? The silence surrounding these questions continues to frustrate investigators and torment her family. More than 2 years after Tioni Theus was found dead on the 110 freeway, her murder remains unsolved. This stark reality represents not just a failure of the justice system, but a continuing source of pain for her family and a disturbing reminder of how difficult it can be to hold traffickers accountable for their crimes. The California Highway Patrol has been remarkably transparent about the challenges they face in this case. In official statements, they have admitted that all investigative leads have been exhausted. This frank acknowledgement is both refreshing and deeply troubling. It suggests that investigators have pursued every avenue available to them, yet they still lack the evidence needed to make arrests.
The case has definitely gotten our attention, and of course, it's top priority, trying to, finalize this case and get justice for the family. So, the difference is obviously we don't have surveillance cameras like, other types of incidents that may be occurring in other areas. So, of course, we rely a lot on the public, right, to call us and, did you see anything?
Investigators and
For Tioni's family, the passage of time without answers has been excruciating. Kevin Theus continues to speak publicly about his daughter's case, not just seeking justice for Tioni, but hoping to prevent other families from experiencing similar losses. His advocacy demonstrates remarkable strength in the face of unimaginable grief. The unsolved nature of the case also highlights the limitations of traditional law enforcement approaches to trafficking-related crimes. These cases often require specialized knowledge, extensive interagency coordination, and community-based approaches that go beyond conventional investigative methods. One particularly frustrating aspect of the investigation is that trafficking cases typically involve multiple victims and extensive criminal networks. Solving Tioni's murder might well lead to helping other victims and dismantling operations that continue to exploit vulnerable young people. The failure to achieve breakthrough in her case means these broader criminal enterprises remain intact. This wall of silence reflects a climate of fear that surrounds trafficking operations. Victims and witnesses often face credible threats of violence if they cooperate with law enforcement. The murder of a 16-year-old girl sends a powerful message about the consequences of speaking out or trying to escape. The ongoing investigation continues, but without new information or evidence, investigators face an increasingly difficult path forward. Cold cases can sometimes be solved years or even decades later when new witnesses come forward, when technology advances allow for different analysis of evidence, or when other criminal cases provide unexpected connections. Tioni's family and the law enforcement agencies involved in her case continue to hold out hope that someone will eventually provide the information needed to solve her murder. They regularly issue public appeals, reminding the community that the case remains active and that information is still being sought. The passage of time, while frustrating, doesn't diminish the commitment to finding Tioni's killer. Justice delayed is not justice denied, and murder cases remain open indefinitely until they are solved. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened to Tioni Theus on January 7 to 8, 2022, and investigators remain hopeful that person will eventually find the courage to come forward. Tioni Theus's murder exposes critical gaps in how our society recognizes, responds to, and prevents human trafficking. Her story provides essential lessons that can help protect other vulnerable young people and potentially save lives if we're willing to listen and learn. The most important lesson from Tioni's case involves understanding how trafficking actually works. Tioni's vulnerability began with her mother's catastrophic accident in 2019. The hit-and-run crash that left her mother with severe brain injuries created exactly the kind of family crisis that traffickers look for. Young people in these situations often feel powerless, desperate, and emotionally isolated, perfect conditions for exploitation by adults who promise love, security, or escape from their problems. Recognizing warning signs is crucial for parents, teachers, and community members who interact with young people. These signs include sudden behavioral changes following traumatic events, extended unexplained absences from home or school, new possessions that can't be explained, relationships with significantly older individuals, and evidence of physical abuse or emotional manipulation. In Tioni's case, her family noticed many of these warning signs. She began staying out for extended periods after her mother's accident. Her behavior changed dramatically, and she became involved with people who were exploiting her. However, like many families, they may not have fully understood the extent of the danger or known how to effectively intervene. The trafficking connection in Tioni's case also highlights how victims are often treated by both the legal system and society at large. Too frequently, trafficked minors are viewed as criminals rather than victims, facing arrest for prostitution, theft, or other crimes they were compelled to commit. This criminalization of victims creates additional trauma and makes it less likely that young people in these situations will seek help. Tioni's case also demonstrates the importance of treating victims with dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstances. Her family's honest acknowledgement that she wasn't an angel, while insisting she was still a victim, provides a model for how society should approach these complex situations. We must be able to hold space for the full humanity of trafficking victims without requiring them to be perfect in order to deserve justice. For community members, Tioni's case raises questions about when and how to intervene, when we suspect a young person is in danger. This might involve reporting concerns to appropriate authorities, connecting families with resources, or simply maintaining relationships that provide alternatives to exploitative situations. What do you think could have made a difference in Tioni's story? And what can we do better as a community to protect vulnerable young people? Let me know your thoughts, and please subscribe for more cases that need our attention. Understanding trafficking as a form of violence against women and girls is crucial for developing effective responses. Tioni was murdered not just because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but because she had become inconvenient or dangerous to criminal enterprises that viewed her as property rather than as a human being with rights and dignity. Law enforcement approaches must evolve to recognize trafficking victims as allies rather than criminals. Building trust with vulnerable communities requires acknowledging past failures and committing to victim-centered approaches that prioritize safety and healing rather than punishment. Finally, Tioni's story reminds us that behind every trafficking case is a real person with hopes, dreams, talents, and potential. She was a straight-A student who loved golf and dance. She had a family that loved her and a future that was stolen from her. Remembering her humanity is essential for maintaining the commitment necessary to prevent similar tragedies and to seek justice for those who have already been lost. Tioni Theus should be alive today. She should be 19 years old, possibly in college, perhaps still playing golf and dancing, building on the academic achievements that once defined her high school experience. Instead, she lies buried while her killer walks free, and her family continues to search for answers that may never come. The failure to solve Tioni's murder represents more than just an unsolved case. It's a reminder how society fails its most vulnerable members. A 16-year-old girl was exploited, trafficked, and ultimately murdered, yet more than 2 years later, no one has been held accountable for these crimes. Her father, Kevin Theus, continues to fight for justice with a dignity that seems impossible under the circumstances. He has refused to let his daughter become just another statistic, another forgotten victim of violence against young women of color. His advocacy serves as both a tribute to Tioni's memory and a call to action for systemic change. The investigation into Tioni's murder remains active. The California Highway Patrol continues to seek information, and a substantial reward, now exceeding $110,000, demonstrates ongoing commitment from multiple agencies and organizations. Anyone with information about Tioni's case is urged to contact investigators at 323-644-9550. Someone knows what happened to Tioni during those final hours of her life. Someone witnessed the events that led to her death. Someone has information that could bring her killer to justice and provide her family with the answers they desperately need. The silence protecting these individuals cannot last forever. Tioni's case also represents thousands of other young people who are currently being trafficked across the United States. Her murder serves as a stark reminder of the violence that victims face and the urgent need for better prevention, intervention, and support systems. Every day that passes without justice for Tioni is another day that similar crimes continue to occur. The broader implications of her story extend beyond individual criminal justice to questions of social equity and community responsibility. How many other Tionis are out there right now, vulnerable and exploited, while we fail to recognize the signs or provide adequate support? How many families are struggling with trauma and crisis without the resources they need to protect their children? Justice for Tioni means more than just finding and prosecuting her killer, though that remains the immediate priority. True justice would involve addressing the systemic failures that made her vulnerable in the first place, the lack of support for families dealing with crisis, the inadequate resources for trafficking victims, and societal attitudes that allow young women of color to disappear without sufficient attention or concern. Her legacy should be one of change. Every person who learns about Tioni's story and recognizes warning signs in their own community, every family that receives support during crisis, every potential victim who finds help before it's too late. These represent victories in Tioni's name. Tioni Theus was more than a victim of trafficking and murder. She was a daughter who brought joy to her family, a student who excelled academically, an athlete who found passion in golf, and a young woman who deserved the chance to grow up and fulfill her potential. Her story ended far too soon, but her impact can continue through the changes her case inspires and the justice it may ultimately achieve. The investigation continues. The reward stands. The family waits. And somewhere, someone holds a key to finally bringing justice for Tioni Theus. The question is not whether they will come forward, but when they will find the courage to do what's right. Tioni's name deserves to be remembered not just as a tragedy, but as a catalyst for protecting other vulnerable young people and creating a society that truly values the lives and safety of all its children. Justice delayed is not justice denied, and the fight for answers in Tioni's case will continue until those responsible for her death are finally held accountable. She was taken too soon, but she will not be forgotten. Her story continues to resonate, her family continues to fight, and her case remains open. Somewhere out there, someone knows the truth about what happened to Tioni Theus. It's time for that truth to come to light.